It starts as a ripple, an almost imperceptible rise in a vast expanse. But then it gathers itself, pulling strength from the depths, gaining strength up to the surface, shifting and folding like silk caught in a breeze. It's inevitable, no stopping it now, the idea of rising towards its peak, ready to crash and reshape your watch collection. I'm going to buy that watch. It's no longer an idea, it's a yearning pursuit. What's yet to be revealed, hidden in the fog, is whether this feeling will last. If the desire was born from a place of passion or pure lust, the only way to know for sure is to leap. What's up, YouTube? I'm Christophernegroni, and today I'm coming clean, guys. I'm coming clean because many of you have noticed and asked, hey Chris, where's your Pepsi at? Haven't seen it on the channel in a while. Would like an update. How are you liking it compared to this watch or that watch? You know, we want to know, where's the Pepsi at? And especially after making my Land, Air, and Sea video, that whole process made things crystal clear. And that's the thing, these videos may help someone else decide one watch over another, but really these videos help me out the most. They really help me work out how I feel about a watch, you know, in a particular moment after owning it for a while, how it fits into my collection. It really helps me zoom out and look at a watch in my collection and decide whether that watch is still for me or if it's time to move on. It's a real therapeutic process, you know. It's a true therapy session with myself. All that to say, it's time to come clean. I sold my Rolex GMT Master 2. I sold a Pepsi. So what happened, Chris? What happened? Why? How could you? How does one go from lusting over a watch for years, from chasing the Pepsi, going into your AD for months on end, and shamelessly wearing a Pepsi hat and schmoozing and running up a spend history to finally getting that call and having all those great experiences and taking the watch all over the world with you, to selling it for dirty blood money. not really blood money, but that sounded funny. But selling it for dirty money. How did I get here? My travel companion, as I love to call it, the watch I engraved with my 30 years represented in seconds. How could I ever sell such a piece? Well, first of all, it isn't without any pain, okay? Any time you sell a watch that is pretty special to you, it hurts a little bit. But it also wasn't a decision I made out of haste. In fact, if you've seen any of my past videos, I've contemplated selling it many times. I talked about how I thought about selling it on my 2-year review, although most of that video was me singing its praises. And I think that may have been a turning point for me, realizing that maybe, just maybe, the chase for the Pepsi was a greater experience than the actual ownership. But I didn't sell it right away. I needed to complete my Land, Air, and Sea collection of iconic Rolex steel sports pieces, and it wasn't until then that I became brutally honest with myself. I had fallen out of love with the Rolex Pepsi. But why? There's a few reasons that became abundantly clear to me after owning the Pepsi for 3 years. Reason number 1, the Rolex GMT Master 2 offers a similar, if not the same wearing experience as other Rolex that I, quite frankly, enjoy wearing more. So what do I mean by that? Let's start with the oyster case that the GMT Master 2 sits in. The 40mm case that it sits in is nearly identical to the Submariner Hulk case, the 40mm oyster case that the Submariner of this era sits in is nearly identical to the GMT case, with some subtle nuances in case back thickness and crown guard size, but For the most part, they're exactly the same case. They both feature that sharp case design, different than that of the Daytona with its smoother lines. They both are satin brushed on the top and high polished on the sides. Yes, the GMT I had was on Jubilee, and while I had zero complaints with the Jubilee, in fact, it's one of the best bracelets around, I still prefer the fully satin brush look on the sub. I think it just fits my athleisure daily attire better. Now, I'm not saying that they are the same watch. I'm speaking purely from a wearing experience. I am well aware that they are conceptually different watches. But when we're talking in these broad terms, they're practically the same watch. Part of my goal in rearranging my watch collection is not only downsizing, but identifying the watches that I truly love and just wearing those watches more. Although I know I'll never be a one watch guy. Even if the concept really speaks to me, I could never do it. I could never do the one watch thing. So having less watches and spending more time with my watches, wearing them more, really helps me create that bond. Really, it makes me more happy. So when it comes to the sporty oyster case Rolexes in my collection, I prefer the Hulk. For all of their differences, I prefer the details of the Hulk over the Pepsi. I know many of you are probably screaming at your devices right now, maybe already commenting in the comment section. One is a dive watch, one is a GMT. They're completely different watches, completely different movements. But that brings me to reason number 2. The GMT, how do I say this? The GMT is just silly. Never have I ever actually found the need to track multiple time zones. You know, even when I'm in a different time zone, when I'm traveling, it's for leisure. It's never for business. You know, I'm not the type that needs to travel for business. So this is me personally, by the way. This is me personally. I'm traveling for leisure. So when I'm in a different time zone, not only do I not need to know the time back home, I don't want to. In fact, I prefer not to know the date. But even on vacation, that comes more in handy than a GMT. I understand for many, the GMT is the ideal travel watch because of its functionality. But for me, I much prefer to travel with my Hulk. It fits what I want out of a travel watch perfectly. I want a watch that can handle any condition, has lots of water resistance, features an adjustable strap, which is an absolute must for those hot and humid climates, and most importantly, it must feature a dial that absolutely sings in the sun. I want the glisten of that dial to serve as a memory when I'm back at home, or even years later when I'm old and freckly. That's all I want out of my travel watch. And when it comes to the movement, I much prefer the simplicity of a dive watch over the dual time zone of a GMT. I just find the whole watch to be a little bit cumbersome, you know, when setting different time zones, and even the date bugs me. You know, on a dive watch, it's so quick. It's a real quick set date. I don't know how they get away with calling it a quick set date on the GMT Master 2. I mean, I guess compared to, you know, the GMT Master of vintage years, it's quick set. I don't know why haven't they figured out a way to really quick set a date on the GMT Master 2? Are they gonna save that for, you know, the 75th anniversary? That's gonna be their big update, huh? They're just gonna say, oh, we have a quick set date finally. Getting back to what I was saying, I just find it cumbersome. And when I did set multiple time zones, it was really only for the sake of setting it, for the love of horology, you could say. It just becomes too much. When you really zoom out and you see, what am I doing here? Why am I setting another time zone? It's a little too nerdy for me. I'm sorry, guys. It's a little bit too nerdy for me. I'm gonna get a lot of hate for that. Maybe I'm an imposter, you know? Maybe I really don't love watches. It's a little nerdy. Gotta set my multiple time zones. I'm traveling to the East Coast. Gotta go 3 hours. Who's really doing that? Oh, look what it's actually midnight in Tokyo. Let me call my friend Hubert in Tokyo. You're not doing that. Out of here. Out of here with all that. It's too nerdy. But the last reason why I decided to sell my GMT Master 2, my Pepsi, is perhaps the most important. The story of the GMT has always been such a grand story. You know, ever since I got into luxury wristwatches, you know, and researching different movements and functions and and the lifestyles and the people who wore these watches, the GMT was always a bigger than life type of watch. The story of the jet setter, the martini sipping world traveler. The problem is, it's not my story. See, I grew up with 5 siblings, and as a kid, I really only traveled out of the country one time. Our idea of a vacation growing up was a day or a weekend trip up to chilly Northern California beaches. Growing up, luxury to me was the Circus Hotel in Las Vegas, or spending the afternoon swimming in a swimming pool with my brothers and sisters. You know, I never really dreamed of that opulent lifestyle, and I still really don't. Even as a kid, I always had my little waterproof Casio on, you know, turned to the inside of my wrist, of course, because I always thought I was cool. But I always make sure to wear that Casio into every pool, into every body of water. You know, I always made sure to go into the deep end, dive as deep as I could, because I wanted to see that little underwater light. I wanted to test that light. I wanted to read my watch underwater. I always thought that was cool. And now as an adult, the beaches are much warmer and the pools are much better. But one thing remains. I still take my little watch into every pool or ocean I can. Yes, it's a fancy Rolex now, but it still lights up underwater. That's my travel watch. So with the GMT, yes, it did the whole travel thing. You know, I did take it everywhere, but deep down, it felt a little forced. It felt like I was forcing myself to make this my travel watch, when in reality, I wanted to take other watches. All those cool GMT stories I read about online, those weren't my stories, and they never will be. But that's the beauty of watches. We all connect to watches for different reasons. And for me, the Hulk really is my travel watch. I don't need to force that. It's the watch I get excited to bring with me to new places. It's the watch that adds to my travel experience. It's the watch that will always make me feel like that 10-year-old with his Casio. So it really wasn't until I could really articulate all those reasons that I began to understand, hey, it's okay. You know, the GMT it isn't for me. You know, it isn't for me, and I realized it's time to let it go. Now, this isn't the first time I've sold a watch, so I've learned a few things. And this isn't just any watch. It's a pretty special watch to me. It always will be. You know, it's my 30th birthday watch. So I wanted to make sure if I was going to sell this, I was going to do it the right way. Like I've said, I've teased selling this watch before, and when I did so, I had many people reach out to me, DM me, message me, offering to buy the watch. So I knew that selling it wouldn't be the problem. Even to this day, getting a Pepsi is damn near impossible. You know, I talk to people every day that are asking, like, how did you get this watch or that watch? How did you get the Daytona, the Pepsi? You know, the demand for these watches really hasn't gone down. So I decided if I'm going to sell it, I'd sell it to a real watch enthusiast, someone I know will actually wear the watch and appreciate it, because I did just that. The watch wasn't a safe queen. I refused to see my Pepsi bounce around the gray market, see it get polished back to new. I needed to find the buyer who would merely wear the watch. And I did. Meet Kyle, my online watch buddy that I'd fly down to Southern California to meet for the first time face-to-face to sell a $20,000 watch. What could go wrong? Needless to say, I'd gotten to know Kyle through my channel, and he jokingly offered to buy the Pepsi even before I decided I wanted to sell it for sure. But I'd got to know Kyle more over a period of months. His collecting strategy and enthusiasm sounded just like mine. He owned a Rolex sub for the rich military history that deeply connects him to the watch. And of course, as he always reminds me, hey, if it's good enough for James Bond, it's good enough for me. His latest ill-advised purchase was a Gevrol Tribeca, which I kindly suggested not to purchase, but Kyle does what Kyle wants, and his dream is to one day own a Paul Newman Daytona, and this homage will have to do for now. As much shit as I give him for buying that Gevrol Tribeca, it's actually a pretty cool watch. It's pretty cool because it's eerily accurate to a Paul Newman Daytona, and it's eerily accurate to a Paul Newman Daytona not because it's, you know, such a great quality watch, but because the actual Paul Newman Daytona is an old watch. It's a tinny watch. You know, when the Paul Newman Daytona came out, they didn't think it'd be a watch worth so much later. You know, it's just what the technology was back then. So I guess it was pretty easy for Gevrol to rip off of that. But I mean, it's cool. It's cool nonetheless. Don't tell him I said that. It's still a homage. It's a homage. It's a homage, Kyle. So after a few months of contemplating, I decided to sell it. Do it right. Do it justice. I'd fly down to Southern California. I'd meet Kyle. I'd present him with the Pepsi. And I'd let her go. Thankfully, Kyle wasn't a complete weirdo, and I can safely report that I did not get shanked for my watch. So it was a success. In fact, it was a great trip filled with good food, great watches, and even better Negronis. Selling my watch this way, flying down there, meeting the next owner, and presenting them with the watch, it really helped me let go of the watch, because a lot of times when you decide to sell a watch, you'll send it to a great dealer, and it can feel a little bit cold, a special watch, something that you chased for years, and you're just selling it to some person on the internet, someone you've never seen before, and it's gonna go across the world or country to some other person that's gonna just put that thing in their safe, and I don't know, or maybe not, you never know, but still, to a dealer, this watch would have just been a 2020, how would they say it? They would say 2020 complete Pepsi, worn, full set, not a slider, right? Not slider condition. Yeah, I watch Vucom, all those sleazeballs.
How much was this?
He didn't tell us.
He didn't tell us. Oh, it's not for me.
They just be slanging watches across the desk. That's how they're gonna treat your watch when you send it to them. I just felt like this was the right way to sell the watch. And now my Pepsi's in good hands. And the best part of this deal is that we actually made a gentleman's agreement. If for some reason Kyle ever decides to sell this watch, I get first right of refusal. Even though I don't expect him to sell it, it feels good to know that it'll at least come back to me, or I'll get a chance to buy it back, because you just never know. I've sold so many watches and regretted so many of them that little detail it feels nice. So if you ever feel like selling it, Kyle. But knowing Kyle, he actually might appreciate that Pepsi more than I ever did. He's one of these guys that really is looking for these watches to wear. Like he's going into these dealers, he's telling his story, he's trying to show his passion for the brand, as they all want you to do. He's had difficulty getting these watches. We actually visited his AD when I came down to visit, just to try on some watches, have a little fun, do the schmoozing, show off his new Pepsi, get it sized, make them size it. There's little tips and tricks you can do. You couldn't get me the Pepsi, but see, I bought it anyways. Maybe that puts Kyle in their mind for the next piece. He's gonna buy the brand no matter what. He loves the brand. Do you even love the brand? AP says that shit all the time. Oh, do you even love the brand? How do you show you love the brand? You gotta buy the code 1159. Anyways, that's a story for another day. Where was I? Okay, so we wanted to go in and I wanted to see how he interacts with his SA, and I wanted to get his Pepsi sized because he's got tiny wrists. You got tiny wrists, Kyle. Just show off his new piece and show the AD that he's committed to the brand. He's gonna keep buying the brand no matter whether they sell it to him or not. So it's really in their best interest to sell him more pieces. At least that's like my little hypothesis. That's my hope for Kyle, is that wearing this Pepsi in, it's gonna get him more Rolex. More Rolex. One thing's for sure, our friend Kyle he is bitten by the watch bug bad. I mean, bad. It wasn't more than a couple of minutes after we had the Pepsi sized to his wrist. We did a little exchange, the B-roll, and he's already talking about a Daytona. He's already talking about his chase for a Daytona. And I honestly, I was in awe. I know I move quick, but I mean, this guy literally just bought a Pepsi. He's scrolling, looking for Daytonas. Oh man, this guy's doomed. Hopelessly doomed. We're rooting for you, Kyle. We're rooting for you, Kyle. Bought a Gevril Tribeca. So yeah, guys, the Pepsi's gone. She's gone. So ugly. Ugly cry. Oh man, I'm okay. I'm okay. It was the right thing to do, I think. The Pepsi is gone, but not forgotten. Never forgotten. You know, before I go, there's one thing I didn't mention. I really didn't need the money. I didn't sell this watch because I needed the money. In reality, I could have just held on to it, just kept it in a watch box, kept it all nice and pristine. A couple scratches here and there. Listen, I'm not mad at the money, okay? I'm not saying I'm mad at it. I'm not complaining because I got some extra money. But I'm just going to spend it on something else anyways. My point is that wasn't even a focus around selling it, which is kind of weird because usually you sell something, you need some money. It was more so the reasons I listed and also the guilt of seeing that watch just in the watch case, not being worn. Wanting to wear my Hulk more, my Daytona more. It was more of a weird watch thing in my head. More of a taking inventory of your life. Marie Kondo level. Not quite Marie Kondo level, but something along those lines. Because when you do so, when you take inventory of your things, especially expensive things, it really helps you narrow down, the ones that you love. And it just gives you that much more appreciation for those things. Marie Kondo. I've never even read that book. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Do you understand the process I went through there? Does it even make sense? Do you think I'm gonna regret it? Do you think I'm feeling regret already? No, I definitely don't regret it. It was the right thing to do. But as always, thank you guys for watching. Negroni out!